Yes, Daniel Waters said, did everyone hear about the girl from Parkland? Yeah, one of the girls that was a survivor from the Parkland shooting in Florida killed herself. And somehow or another, I'm sorry guys, somehow or another that's newsworthy. I honestly don't understand why it's newsworthy that some girl from a, uh, a school where there was a school shooting, she didn't get shot, but suddenly she kills herself and it's major news. All that's trying to do is bring focus back to the shooting so that we can make it sound like guns are bad. Somehow or another, they're trying to link it back to the shooting and say that because she has PTSD and survivor's syndrome, because she's upset because she survived, that somehow or another a gun is still to blame. The gun was to blame for the shooting, and now the gun is to blame for a suicide a year later. I'm sorry, I feel for the girl. I really feel for her parents, but guns have nothing to do with this. If we're going to talk about suicides, let's talk about ones that probably matter a little bit more, like those from our armed forces, our veterans, those guys that are killing themselves by a rate of 22 a day. Let's talk about those guys. Let's talk about the suicides of the kids who get bullied in school and nobody ever wants to talk about them and bring any light to them. I'm sorry, this girl who I don't know and I should not know is not important to me. I would like to talk about some of the other suicides out there if we're going to want to talk about something like that and talk about the people that actually matter. Again, no disrespect to this girl and her family, but she is not newsworthy. If you want to talk about people who have done things that we should try to figure out how to stop them killing themselves, it would be veterans. We have an alarming rate of suicide amongst our veterans, and we ought to be doing something about it, and we're not. That's more of a concern to me. I'm sorry if that sounds cold and insensitive, but I don't care because things that are important to me are important to me. And again, my heart goes out to the girl's family. It's not my problem. And it's pathetic, it's sickening, and it's disgusting that we know the only reason why it's news is because the left wants to draw more light on something that was not gun related just because it had a gun involved in it. And it was a total failure and breakdown of the county down there, Broward County down in Florida. And all of the from the top down, everybody failed at what they do, from the resource officer up all the way up to the sheriff to the federal government paying bribes, which essentially amounted to bribes for that county to not report these kids, like this boy who shot the place up and the cops went to his house 47 times, but they never did anything, never arrested him or never did anything at all because the federal government was giving them bribe money, incentive money, to not talk about it. So we're going to gloss over everything that really happened down there and focus on guns and still try to bring it back up when this poor girl kills herself in order so we can talk about it and make it again sound like a gun is the problem. Again, guys, the left is disgusting in how they try to politicize things. No way any of us should have heard about this girl killing herself. No way any of us should have heard about it. It's not newsworthy. It's not newsworthy. I'm sorry, it's just not. If we're going to talk about her suicide, we should be talking about hundreds of thousands of other suicides. This one is no more important than the other one. In fact, it's less important. Again, I go back to we should be talking about and trying to see why our veterans are killing themselves at alarming rates right now. That's important to me. I'm sorry, guys. That's just a rant I had to get on. Let's see. I have some pretty cool stuff I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about real quick, because I got a lot of stuff I want to go into. I want to talk real quickly about New Zealand. It took them 6 days after that shooting in New Zealand, 6 days after that terrorist attack on the mosque, that they are going to outlaw semi-automatic weapons and AR-15s. I will try not to call them assault weapons because that's a made-up term, and I try not to fall into the prey of the left. But they're outlawing them. The left in America is applauding it because they feel like, yay, 4.6 million people, 4.6 million people on this little bitty island called New Zealand, 4.6 million people. You know what I live next to? I live only a couple of hours away from 4.6 million people in the city of Houston, Texas. So one city in America has as many people as an entire country. And we're trying to compare. It'd be like taking Houston and comparing Houston to America. Why would we do that? Of course, it's stupid. So why would we ever do that? So why would we ever compare something like New Zealand to America? But it doesn't matter because the left sees this as virtue signaling and they love it. I want to say this real quick, and this is honestly how I feel. If a foreigner, we're talking about the New Zealand murder, if a foreigner enters somebody else's country and kills a bunch of its people, are we not rewarding the terrorists whenever we suddenly outlaw guns so that honest law-abiding people now can't have them? Don't you think the terrorists won? Don't you think the other wacko white supremacists that want to see people killed are not high-fiving each other right now because they got exactly what they wanted? Don't you think the white supremacists are reading the manifesto of this guy who shot all those people up and saw that New Zealand is doing exactly what he wanted them to do? So why would you ever disarm innocent people because one foreigner enters your country and shoots some of your citizens? If a foreigner comes into the United States and shoots a bunch of our citizens, why would we ever ban guns? It makes absolutely no sense, guys. I can't even put forth a decent argument because it's so stupid to even address it. So I don't understand how you disenfranchise an entire country because somebody who was not one of your countrymen enters your country and kills people and breaks laws. The guy entered your country and broke all the laws, not to mention murder. I don't know New Zealand laws. I'm guessing murder is illegal in New Zealand. This guy set out to do all of this. It was no accident that people died. He did this on purpose. So he knew what he was going to be doing. He knew he would be killing people. This guy was not interested in following the law. But now we've disenfranchised 4.6 million honest law-abiding people in the country, the state, the city of New Zealand, because it's not much of a country, all because of one idiot that chose to break the law and had a screw loose upstairs. There's a lot of crazy people in the world. You don't think this is an incentive to terrorists everywhere? You don't think that we're going to have a Muslim terrorist, another white supremacist terrorist, anybody that is a terrorist that wants to kill innocent people for no reason other than race, religion, creed, whatever? You don't think that's going to happen in the United States now? Because all these people, these wackos, these nut jobs, now have seen what happened in New Zealand. I know it didn't happen here, but our politicians are applauding New Zealand, saying, oh, that's leadership. So they see that America wants the same thing that New Zealand just did. Not wholeheartedly, because clearly the majority of America is not in favor of disarming the majority of the population here. But these terrorists see that the, quote, leadership, politicians in America are applauding what just happened in New Zealand. So you don't think now that we have opened ourselves up to more of a potential of a mass shooting over here or a mass killing by a foreigner now? Because they realize now that if you want to disarm America, all we got to do is walk into a church, a synagogue, a mosque, and kill a whole bunch of people. And Americans will try to legislate based simply on feelings and emotion, just like what New Zealand did. So I think we've opened ourselves up to some potential mass killings over here in the country of the United States of America. I honestly do. I feel like we're probably not far away from another mass killing any day now. Any day, especially while it's still fresh in everybody's mind. That's one thing that Democrats love to do, is they like to work on all of this stuff based on emotion. So I truly believe that while the emotion is still high, now's a good time to do it. If a terrorist, and look, I hear people all the time say, oh, don't give them any ideas. Look, terrorists don't watch my show for ideas, so don't give me that crap. But terrorists, I believe, are going to look at this and say, what a great idea. All I got to do is go over there to a church, a mosque, a synagogue, or a school for that matter. Shoot up a whole bunch of people, leave some kind of manifesto that people are going to bite hook, line, and sinker, and then all of a sudden, America's going to outlaw certain guns. Don't say it can't happen. Don't say it can't happen. Shiner Bock, light blonde beer tonight, guys. Drink them if you got them. All right, enough on New Zealand. I don't like to waste a whole lot of time on that. That's a little pimple in the ocean over there making stupid decisions to disenfranchise their entire population. I want to talk about some good news, some interesting news, some news that gives me hope, honestly. And look, guys, I want to tell y'all right now, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, or a bottle half full kind of guy. I'm not a doom and gloom person, even though we talk about some negative things on here. I'm one of the kind of people that whenever I see something happening, I always try to look on the bright side. I'm never one that's going to sit here and act like poor me, poor me, poor me. None of that kind of stuff ever happens. I always like to look on the bright side. This is a very bright side. This is Senate Bill number 367 from the beautiful state of Missouri. I never thought I would envy another state more than Louisiana, the wonderful state that I live in. Born and raised in Louisiana, don't want to move, have had opportunities to move, don't want to, but I tell you what, if Senate Bill number 367 passes the House, because it's already passed the Senate in the state of Missouri, the governor is very possibly going to support this along with the lieutenant governor of the state of Missouri. We might have ourselves one of the first pro-gun laws that could pass. I know it's a state, but it's going to set a precedent and it's going to make a mark for all these other states that need to go out there and they need to start pushing. We have more of a say-so locally in our own states than we do nationally with these laws. So your local politicians are more likely to listen to you in your own state than the ones in Washington, D.C., because by the time they get to D.C., the money is corrupting them. I don't think at the state level they're quite as corrupt. I didn't say they weren't corrupt. I said they're not quite as corrupt. Let me tell you at a very high level what Senate Bill number 367 is in the state of Missouri. What it essentially does is it calls out the federal government and lets them know that any national federal laws that they try to implement that are viewed as anti-Second Amendment, anti-gun, that they will be deemed null and void and not enforceable in the state of Missouri. That means that not only will federal employees not be allowed, which includes the ATF, they will not be allowed to try to enforce any federal anti-gun laws or gun control type laws, including the NFA, in the state of Missouri. But the beautiful thing about this thing was well written. It's got some teeth in there for local people. So I have to believe, and I don't know this for a fact, I'm going to make a wild assumption here. Kansas City, I'm sure a couple of other cities in Missouri, being as populated as they are, probably have some liberal people in it. This bill is prepared for that. What it's doing is it's got some teeth written in here that essentially say that if any kind of a law enforcement person or anyone in the state of Missouri attempts to enforce a federal law that is a gun control type law that infringes upon the Second Amendment, that not only will that person be unemployable, but they will actually face some very stiff penalties, which include assuming all legal expenses of the person who will sue them that they were trying to disenfranchise. I'm going to read some of this, guys, and I hope that this doesn't bore you all, because this is important that we talk about this, because, I mean, just as we greeted everybody coming in the room here, you guys are spread out from California to New York to Florida. Saw somebody in here from Washington. We're all over the country. If we can generate this kind of interest nationwide in all 50 states, guys, things can happen. I'm telling you, things can happen, man. We can push some stuff locally. So again, I'm going to go a little bit in detail of this. But there's a reason for that, because I want to make sure we all understand what's going on, how this thing was written, and I will actually encourage all of you to check it out because you really want to read this thing and see the meat of it. Okay, let's see. I highlighted some things to try to go right to it because this is a 6-page bill. The General Assembly of the State of Missouri is firmly resolved to support and defend the United States Constitution against every aggression, whether foreign or domestic. That's a beautiful thing right there, because what they're doing is they're sarcastically implying that any of these gun control bills are a defense against domestic forces that might seek to do us harm. That's a beautiful thing right there. The way they word that is so classic. Let's see. I'm going to scroll down here to some of the things that they point out that I want you to read. Whenever the federal government assumes power that the people did not grant it in the United States Constitution, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. The wording of this thing, oh my God, it's like reading a fucking, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to say that word because I'm so excited right now. It's like reading a porn magazine for the first time when you were 13 or 14 years old and the first time you laid your eyes on a Playboy or something like that. Because the wording is just so beautiful in here. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, did somebody really write this? Again, when the federal government assumes powers that the people did not grant it in the United States Constitution, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. What a wonderful string of words put together in one sentence. It's rarely that I have ever read a sentence that is so beautiful. This is such a beautiful, I might get a shirt made with that freaking sentence on it, because it is a wonderful, beautiful thing. That is, whoever penned this thing has a key to my heart. Unbelievable. One of these other paragraphs I want you guys to read. Although the several states have granted supremacy, and this is cool, guys, let me stop this real quick. They're spelling out, kind of in a smart aleck way, they're spelling out what's wrong with the country in this next sentence. Although the several states have granted supremacy to laws and treaties made under the powers granted in the United States Constitution, such supremacy does not extend to various federal statutes, executive orders, administrative orders, court orders, rules, regulations, or other actions which restrict or prohibit the manufacture, ownership, and use of firearms, firearm accessories, bump stocks, or ammunition exclusively within the borders of Missouri. Such statutes, executive orders, administrative orders, court orders, rules, regulations, and other actions exceed the powers granted to the federal government. Guys, again, this is a beautiful thing. I'm going to keep going here. I don't want to slow down too much. Let's see. Consequently, the General Assembly rejects any claim that the taxing and spending powers of Congress can be used to diminish in any way the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Let me repeat that. Consequently, the General Assembly rejects any claim that the taxing and spending powers of Congress can be used to diminish in any way the right of the people to keep and bear arms. That's NFA stuff right there, guys. That's short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns. We're talking about suppressors. We're talking about friggin' machine guns here. This is some meaty stuff, guys. This is at the state level. They've got constitutional rights to do that because the Constitution does not give us rights and it does not give permission of the government to do anything. It limits the federal government's rights and it recognizes our rights. It doesn't give us those rights. It recognizes the rights that we already have. It's simply spelling them out and it's limiting what the federal government can do. The state of Missouri is letting the federal government know we run the state of Missouri. You don't. Another paragraph here. The General Assembly of the State of Missouri strongly promotes responsible gun ownership. This is kind of cool what they lay out right here. Including parental supervision of minors in the proper use, storage, and ownership of all firearms, the prompt reporting of stolen firearms, and the proper enforcement of all state gun laws. What this tells me is, and guys, again, I'm not from Missouri, I'm from the state of Louisiana. I don't want to assume to know what the gun laws are in Missouri, but by them spelling these particular things out in Section 9 of their bill, again, it's talking about responsible gun ownership, including parental supervision of minors in the proper use, storage, and ownership of all firearms, the prompt reporting of stolen firearms and a proper enforcement of all state gun laws. They must have some laws in the state of Missouri that have something to do with proper use, storage, ownership of the firearms, and the prompt reporting of stolen firearms for them to point these out in this particular bill. In other words, they're acknowledging, from my guess, they're acknowledging some things that they actually do have already in place over there, and they're kind of saying that these things don't go away. We're still recognizing the laws that we in the state of Missouri actually have. We're simply not allowing the federal government to mandate things within our state that are an infringement against the Second Amendment, which is the law of the land. This next part is, again, it's lengthy, but it's very interesting. The following federal acts, laws, executive orders, administrative orders, court orders, rules, and regulations shall be considered infringements on the people's right to keep and bear arms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Missouri within the borders of the state, including but not limited to any tax. No more $200 tax stamps in the state of Missouri, guys. Any tax, levy, fee, or stamp imposed on firearms, firearm accessories, bump stocks, or ammunition not common to all of the goods and services which might reasonably be expected to create a chilling effect on the purchase of ownership of those items by law-abiding citizens. Any registering or tracking of firearms. That means that you're not going to have any kind of registration or database that's going to ever be allowed in the state of Missouri if this passes, regardless of what the federal government tries to mandate. So if they try to implement any kind of federal registrar of guns out there, the state of Missouri is not going to allow it in their state. Let's see. Any registering or they're saying what they're going to disallow. Any registering or tracking of the owners of firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition. So you're not going to be able to put serial numbers on your ammunition or do any of this stuff. Again, bump stock, the ban that they have on bump stocks, out the window. It will not apply in the state of Missouri. Any act forbidding the possession, ownership, or use, or transfer of a firearm, firearm accessory, or ammunition by law-abiding citizens. It didn't say any act forbidding the possession, ownership, or use of a non-NFA firearm. It said transfer of a firearm. That means that you can also sell a machine gun to a friend without filling out a background check or without having to go through the NFA garbage and all the paperwork involved there. Let's see. Any act ordering the confiscation of firearms, firearm accessories, bump stocks, or ammunition from law-abiding citizens. This is where heads are going to roll. And when I say that, in case any liberals are watching or any liberals come in and later on to watch it, I don't mean heads are going to roll literally. It's figuratively. It's a frigging figure of speech. No person, including any public officer or employee of this state or any political subdivision of this state, shall have the authority to enforce or attempt to enforce any federal acts, laws, executive orders, administrative orders, court orders, rules, regulations, statutes, or ordinances infringing on the right to keep and bear arms as described under section 1.410. This is where the meat is. This is where the teeth of this thing are. Any entity or person who acts knowingly, this is where you're going to get punished. This is where a local sheriff or a local police chief or an ATF agent working in the state of Missouri, this is where they get punished. I'm not talking about gets outlined to where they say what they can or can't do. I'm talking about if you get one of these rogue guys that says, bull, I'm going to do this anyway because the federal government told me to. Now you're going to receive punishment. Any entity or person who acts knowingly, as defined under section 562.016, to violate the provisions or otherwise knowingly deprive a citizen of Missouri of the rights or privileges ensured by the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States or of the Constitution of Missouri, while acting under the color of any state or federal law shall be liable to the injured party in an action at law, suit, inequity, or other proper proceedings for redress. That means if anyone inside the state of Missouri, whether you are a federal employee, a county employee, a city employee, or a state employee, if you attempt to try to enforce upon anyone, a citizen of the state of Missouri, within the boundaries of the state of Missouri, any federal law, whether it be NFA laws, a law on suppressors, asking somebody for their paperwork if they're shooting a suppressor at a gun range, if you attempt to do any of that, they are saying you can and will be sued, and that you are responsible for any cost associated with that lawsuit. You assume full responsibility, and you will be punished for trying to pursue an unenforceable law that's null and void in the state of Missouri. This is a beautiful thing, guys. I'm going to keep on because I feel like we're on a roll here. This is further enforcement and way more than just a slap on the wrist of somebody who tries to infringe upon anybody's rights, on Second Amendment rights in the state of Missouri. Any person, while acting as an official, agent, employee, or deputy of the government of the United States, let me back up for a second. This is specifically saying that if you're an ATF agent, they should have written ATF agent right here because they're talking directly to the ATF. Any person while acting as an official, agent, employee, or deputy of the government of the United States, or while otherwise acting under the color of federal law, while within the borders of this state, who knowingly, as defined under section blah, 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 enforces or attempts to enforce any of the infringements identified in this section, gives material aid and support to the efforts of others who enforce or attempt to enforce any of the infringements identified in this section, shall be permanently ineligible to serve as a law enforcement officer or to supervise law enforcement officers for the state or any political subdivision of the state. What it's saying is, okay, if you didn't hear my warning that I'm telling you that you cannot infringe upon the citizens of the state of Missouri, now let me tell you this. If you're in law enforcement, which they all are, anybody who would attempt to enforce one of these laws is in law enforcement, whether it's the ATF, whether it's the sheriff's department, whether it's the police department or the state police, if you attempt to enforce one of these infringements upon the citizens of the state of Missouri, you will be terminated, and you will never be able to be employed in the state of the state of Missouri again in the law enforcement system ever at all. Done. Your career is over. Done. Gets my attention. If I'm in law enforcement in that state or a federal employee in that state, if I'm an ATF agent in the state of Missouri, you know what I'm doing right now? I'm trying to see what other schools that are really good to be sending my kids to in other areas, because I don't want to work in the state of Missouri if this thing passes, because I'm going to lose my job, people are going to sue me, and I will be unemployable anywhere I go. Let's see. This is kind of cool. Neither the state nor any political subdivision of the state shall employ as a law enforcement officer or supervisor of law enforcement officers any person who is ineligible to serve in such capacity under this section. So not only is it saying that you're going to be terminated, it's saying that when you are terminated, this law is also going to make it to where you can never work in law enforcement in this state again in any capacity. Beautiful. It also says the law enforcement officer or supervisor of law. Guys, there are paragraphs talking about what's going to happen to you if you try to infringe upon the citizens of the state of Missouri when it comes to the Second Amendment. It says the law enforcement officer or supervisor of law enforcement officers shall immediately be terminated from his or her position. That is wonderful. Nothing in this section shall preclude a person's right of appeal or remediation as provided under Chapter 590. Again, guys, If you're in law enforcement and you're in the state of Missouri and you don't like guns and you don't like gun owners, it's time to move. You're right close to Illinois. You may as well move to Illinois. Nothing like this will ever pass in the state of Illinois. So if you're anti-gun and you're in law enforcement or you work for the ATF, you'll want to start shopping for land in Illinois, because Missouri is not the place for you. Guys, Senate Bill number 367 has passed the Senate in the state of Missouri. Now it has to go to the House. The House has to pass it. Once it goes there, I don't know if the lieutenant governor has anything to do with this, but I know the governor does. If this passes the House and goes to the governor's desk, the governor in the state of Missouri has supported a previous version of this. This same bill, or bill very similar to this, I want to say it was in 2012 or 2013 maybe 2015, within the last few years or so. This same type of bill with the same wording came up and actually passed the House, and it almost passed the Senate, but it was filibustered by some liberals at the very last minute. So the governor and lieutenant governor were in politics at that time, and they supported this bill when it passed in the House back then. So it's very likely that the governor will, with no problem, sign this thing into effect. I cannot tell you how happy this makes me to read this. A lot of times I hate reading these bills because they're boring, they're repetitive, and it just makes you mad when you read them, because I'm going to tell you why here in a second. But a lot of these bills, if you think about it, think about a lot of the bills that we've had to talk about here. In almost every case, when I break down a bill to you guys and we sit here and talk about and debate and just discuss some of these bills, I should say this. I was going to say not one of them has been pro-gun. If you remember the Hearing Protection Act that we could have passed for 2 years when Donald Trump got in office, never came up for a vote. That's the last thing that we've talked about that was pro-gun. But we always talk about anti-gun bills. Now we got something like this to talk about. This is what we need to be doing in this country, guys. Instead of us gun owners always being on the defensive and always having to be on the defensive because the Democrats attack. And I should say the anti-gun people, because I have a lot of Democrats that contact me and say, oh, not all Democrats are anti-gun. Look, at the federal level, all Democrats are anti-gun. I get that there's some gun-toting Democrats out there who don't agree with all this stuff. I mean, I get that. I also don't think all Democrats are bad people. But when you get to Washington, D.C., all the Democrats are anti-gun. Even if you as a Democrat are not anti-gun, the people representing you in Congress, they are. So we're always having to fight this stuff, always having to. And now we have a state and a group of people who have said, you know what? Instead of us always fighting back, let's draw first blood. Let's be the one that throw this at their feet. And now I want to hear somebody come out here and fight this. Because you know what? I have questions that I'm going to have to ask. If for some reason this gets voted down, if I'm a citizen of the state of Missouri, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to contact those people and ask them, why are you against the Second Amendment? Why are you against the Constitution of our great country? Because there's no way that the federal government can push things onto these states. These states have the right to not enforce that. Now look, going back to states' rights, the beautiful thing about the Constitution, the 10th Amendment is about states' rights, guys. Some people say, okay, well, if you're all for states' rights, then shouldn't the states be able to make their own rules in terms of firearms? It doesn't work like that. Just like the Constitution states that any rights that are, and I don't know the exact terms, I'm sorry I don't know this, but it basically states that any rights that are not given to the federal government to regulate are not regulatable by the federal government, and that if it's not given to the federal government to have any control over, then the states control all that. The states are the ones who give the federal government the ability to enforce some of these rules. If it's not outlined in the Constitution, then the states can do whatever they want. But the Second Amendment is outlined in the Constitution. So that means that states cannot infringe upon the Constitution. The 10th Amendment and the Second Amendment are both spoken highly of. States like California and New York, they can't enforce these anti-constitution laws. They can't make these laws. It's totally anti-constitution. If some of these states wanted to really make some noise, but they're loaded with liberals, so they're not going to, but if some of these states wanted to make some noise and push some of these anti-gun state bills out the window, they could. They could mount something, bring it to the Supreme Court, and get it fought and win it, because the states do not possess any of these rights to infringe upon your Second Amendment rights, because the Constitution of the federal government gives us those rights. So the states have no jurisdiction over that. However, the states can say, like Missouri's doing, that look, we recognize your own federal Constitution, your own Second Amendment. Missouri's basically telling the country, Missouri's basically telling Washington, D.C., hey, you might not respect your Second Amendment that's supposed to be over the entire country, but we do. As one of the 50 states, we do respect the Second Amendment. So the fact that you're trying to infringe upon people in our state, we're not going to let you, because we're recognizing the federal Constitution the way it was written in our state, and you got no jurisdiction in my state. They're using the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment in the state of Missouri. What a beautiful thing. As a constitutionalist, you got to be looking at this going, this is a beautiful thing. This is a perfect storm. This is what the federal government, more than anything, is regretting. This is what they fear more than anything, is the states recognizing the rights that they have, the people recognizing the rights that they have, and using the own government's federal constitution against them to say, we're recognizing your Second Amendment, and we're using the 10th Amendment to keep you out of our state and not allowing you to disenfranchise any of our people in our state based on the 10th Amendment, because we're going to be supporting your Second Amendment. Again, it's a beautiful thing. This is a beautiful thing. I'm excited. I think that this has legs. I have seen some attorneys online that are trying to shoot this down, saying it doesn't mean anything. Bull crap. It does mean something. This has legs. This can actually go somewhere. You know why? Because they're right. They're 100% right. This would hold up in the Supreme Court. It absolutely would. If this made it to the Supreme Court, the 10th Amendment and the Second Amendment would be front and center, and the Supreme Court justices, probably even some of those liberal wackos in it, will be sitting there looking at each other going, I don't agree with this, but they're right. You know, they're exactly right. Guys, this is a very encouraging, bold step in the right direction. Now, what's next, you ask? Get a swig of beer. Well, real quick, the sponsor of the bill, oh gosh, I feel bad that I don't remember his name, Burleson. Where is his name at? It's not written on the bill. Usually in the federal bills, the sponsor and the co-sponsor's names are written on the bill. I don't see it on this one. I know his last name is Burleson, Senator Burleson, in Missouri. I actually tried to contact his office today. I left him 2 voicemails, asked him to please call me, that I wanted to talk to him about this. I let him know who I was. I let him kind of know about my credentials so that he'll take me seriously. And I want to talk to him about this. I want him to know that we support you in the state of Louisiana. And many of us throughout the country are watching you. We support what you're doing. We're behind you 100%. And I see a very big future for Senator Burleson for trying to enact this and push this through. Because whether it passes or not shows me where his heart is in terms of the Second Amendment and in terms of keeping the federal government out of states' rights and keeping the federal government from trying to disenfranchise and infringe upon our rights even more. Burleson seems like a really good guy. Burleson is the guy I could probably sit down and drink a couple of beers with. This is a big step, guys. I mean, I hate to keep moving on this and saying how, repeating it, but if there's any way, if it passes the House, guys, Oh my God. If it passes the House in Missouri, I'm going to do everything I can. In fact, I may do this. This is what I might do. I'm thinking out loud here. I might go do gosh, what I'm trying, you guys, a change.org tonight. I might go do a change.org tonight, and I'll post it if I do. That the way change.org works, if you guys have not used it before, it's pretty cool. You can set up what your movement is, or what your thing is that you're trying to support. You can set it up, and you can actually determine what people are going to receive. When somebody signs up for it, they'll receive notification. They'll receive notification that Paul Glasgow signed the petition on change.org. So you can go in there and designate who receives it. I've put anti-gun things out there on change.org before that went to the President of the United States, the Vice President, every member of the Senate, every member of the House. So what I'll do is I'll put together a change.org that goes to every member of the House, if I can find them, of course. But every member of the House in Missouri, as well as the Senate in Missouri, and the governor, the lieutenant governor, I will make sure that when you click on that you support it and you sign that petition on change.org, they will all receive an email saying that these people do it. And I think what we should do is we should be specific that, hey guys, I'm not in your state. I'm not a member of Missouri. I don't live in the state of Missouri, but I also live in the state of Louisiana, and we support what you're doing. We want it here, and let our politicians see it. Because let me tell you something. I say this in a lot of my videos, and I mean this as sure as I'm standing right here. Politicians only fear getting voted out of office. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care little about money. But the reason they care about that money is because while they're in office, they get that free money, that gravy train money. So when you threaten to take that gravy train from them by voting them out of office, they're listening. Whether they like you or not, they are listening to you. So if we can get this petition signed by a bunch of people and get these people to start getting bombarded with these emails and really see that not only the people in the state of Missouri support this, but the entire country supports what they're doing, that's how you start a movement, guys. That is how you start a movement. I'm so sick of seeing the left and the anti-gun people organize out there and do these things and mount these big campaigns that everybody takes part in, and we do nothing. We do nothing. We sit here and, excuse my French, we bitch at each other on social media. We talk about each other. We talk about how the NRA is not as good as Gun Owners of America, how this YouTuber's not cool. And you know what I mean? We fight amongst each other all the time, and we never mobilize and we never put our efforts together to fight these wacko anti-gun people. Now's the time that we do that. This is an opportunity for us all to put together and form a movement. All movements start at the grassroots level. They all start there. Now, they may grow rapidly and all of a sudden take over some kind of a national look, but they all start at the grassroots ground level. So just us on here, how many people are on here? 138 people? 138 people on here. That's plenty to start a grassroots level. Can you imagine 138 people on here being able to all get families and friends, all of your social media, each one of you who belong to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you all contact all your contacts on there and say, hey, this is a petition that we're going to do. I mean, it blossoms and balloons. You could have 5,000 people by tomorrow morning who have signed that change.org petition just because a handful of us pushed one of these things through and tried to get it out to our social media friends. Very doable, guys. It's very doable. Again, this is not pie in the sky. This is not some of these things out there that we talk about and we're all like, yeah, you know, it sounds good, rah, 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 but it's never really going to happen. Man, this can happen. This can really happen. You can get people's attention. The state of Louisiana, speaking from experience here, it would be a challenge in the state of Louisiana to get something like that passed through here. Main reason why is we have a wacko Democrat governor, which I think he's going to be voted out very, very soon. But we also have, just like most states, which Missouri seems to be, I mean, they're just like Louisiana. We've got our Baton Rouge, Shreveport, our New Orleans areas. that have a lot of garbage people, high crime rate. So obviously they're voting in some of their liberal leaders. So a state like Louisiana, we got to fight. You know, our representatives and our senators have to fight those people. But from a state standpoint, we've got a fewer number of people that we have to convince. And look, there are pro-gun people who are in these garbage communities. And I say that because it's high crime rate. And nobody's trying to do anything about it. It's kind of like Chicago. When people kill each other in Chicago, everybody else is like, not a big deal. That's Chicago. That's kind of like what happens in New Orleans and Baton Rouge around here. People shoot each other all the time. It doesn't make the news. If a person in Lake Charles, Louisiana gets murdered overnight, it's on the front page of the newspaper and TV at night at the 10 o'clock news. Somebody gets murdered in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, it's not going to be in the newspaper. It's probably not going to make the news. And unless you know somebody on Facebook who was a friend to somebody, you're probably not even going to hear about it. They accept that kind of crap in these communities like that. So that's the fight we have. We have those people in those communities that we have to convince. They'll never vote for anything like this, but there are some pro-gun people who live in their communities also. So we have that going for us. I think this is manageable, guys. I really think this is manageable. I do believe that a state like Missouri, Missouri has been doing some cool things as far as, guns and all that go. Now, they have some wackos at the federal level from Missouri. What's her name? The wacko that you guys have over there in Missouri. Did she get voted out? I don't know if somebody on here is from Missouri. I forget what her name is, but I'm not sure if she got voted out or if she's still over there messing around in state of Missouri. Now, she's a wacko. But again, we're not talking about the federal level, so we don't care. And that's the beauty of this too, guys. I want to say this, and this is very important. I'm the kind of guy that I don't boast. I consider myself a pretty humble person. McCaskill. Yes, thank you, Hugh Jazz Bear, McCaskill. I don't boast, but I'm proud of the things that we do if it's something good. Okay, when somebody is trying to infringe upon my rights and I win, I'm going to rub it in. I'm sorry. I know you might be thinking that's un-American of me, that's un-Christian. Sorry. If you are trying to take rights that are mine from me and I win, I will let you know that I won. So nothing makes me happier than seeing the state of Missouri pushing something through like this and making the senators and the congresspersons who represent the state of Missouri sitting in Washington, D.C., having zero effect on what's going on and being totally insignificant. How cool is that? I'm serious. How cool is it to know that locally you're not only making a difference, but you're basically passing a law that says, hey, you guys over there in Washington, D.C., I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter to us over here. So you're basically devaluing and making every single senator and every single representative from the state of Missouri feel like total garbage and realize that they just got less valuable to the people of the state of Missouri. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is it to make these people realize that they're becoming less significant in our lives every single day? They have come to believe in Washington, D.C., that they are the elite and that they are the movers and shakers and that none of us matter. Now they don't matter. That is a beautiful thing. I'm sorry. I know that sounds prideful and I know it sounds not very humble, but I mean it from my heart. It's time to send a message to these people who have proclaimed themselves as being the leaders of us and that we are just the peasants and the poor people and none of us matter. It's time that we let them know that we really do have the power, that we really do. That Constitution is not giving me a right. It's recognizing the rights that I already have, and you can't do anything about it. Because, hey, guess what? Us over here in the state of Missouri, we're doing whatever we want to. We're actually enforcing the Second Amendment. Oh, and guess what? We got a 10th Amendment, too, that says you got to stay out of our state. And they're going to put your butt out of work if you try to enforce a federal gun law in the state of Missouri. Guys, this is like... if any of you are as old as me, you remember how excited you were on Saturday morning to go watch Saturday morning cartoons? That's what this feels like to me. It's like I just woke up and it's time to go turn on Saturday morning cartoons because it's on. That's great, guys. I mean, this is awesome. I'm very excited. This is the most excited I've been in so long because I see this as a step in the right direction. And I see this as finally we get off the dang defensive and we get offensive with this. Finally, we push things through. Instead of always deflecting all of these anti-gun laws. Hey, I tell you what, now take this. There's a law. Now you get on the defensive. You do it. I'm on the offensive now. This is my law. It supports the federal Constitution. And guess what? No attorney can poke a hole in this. I love it, guys. Oh man, this is so cool. I am going to do this though. When I get off of here, I am going to work on. I'm going to pin that change.org. In fact, make myself a note here. I promise you, I will try to get this out tonight, and I'm sure I will, unless something happens, unless my kid needs to go to bed early or something like that. I'll try to get this out tonight. Promise you, I will. Let's see, guys. Let me try to, we got 4 minutes left until I'm going to cut out of here. So if you got any questions, I try to direct them at me at Legally Armed America, and I will try to answer them. Nooner Eclipse says, are you ever on gunchannels.com live streams? No, I'm not. I don't know what that is. So I have not been on gunchannels.com. Let's see. And I do apologize for somewhat ignoring you guys' comments all night long, but you know, once I got involved in this thing, it's awesome. I'm going to try to post links to all of this stuff that I've got on my website later on too. Let's see. Ryan Westall says, wish me and my buddy and our class good luck on our concealed carry class tomorrow. Yeah, man, good luck. That's awesome. Definitely wish you guys luck. Please be safe. I mean, obviously it goes without saying you're going to be working with some live ammo. So again, please be safe. It'd be really cool to have some more concealed carry guys out there. I mean, it's a beautiful thing there too. We need to have more of that. James Wade says, what can you advise for Washington State on I-1639? Man, I don't know on I-1639. I'd still be contacting my local reps, but man, I gotta say that some states are a lost cause. And I do think Washington and Oregon are getting near to that, but you guys aren't a lost cause yet. I would just contact your local representatives. Again, guys, when these people get into office, even at the state and local level, they realize how good the money is, all the kickbacks that they get, all the bribes that they get, all the little bit of work that they have to do. They love it. So once they get a taste of it, even at that local level, they don't want to lose it. Politely threaten them that you will vote them out of office if they continue to support these things. You can undo some of these things. You can undo some of these anti-constitutional bills. It's possible. Let's see. Yeah. Ryder Dust says going on the offensive is the answer. I absolutely believe that. I really do. Because we always look like the victim. Because we're always fighting out of a hole. We're always trying to claw ourselves out of this hole that we let the anti-gun movement put us into. It's time we put them in a hole. Let them fight out of it. It's time, man. Let's see. Good. Kathleen says, I'm in Washington State and I constantly contact my representatives. Good for you. That's good. I mean, that's a step in the right direction. That is what it takes. They don't want to be voted out, man. Let's see. Just reading y'all stuff, guys. Yeah, somebody mentions in there asking someone, one of the other viewers, about representatives' numbers. That's important, man. If you know your representatives' names, you can find out how to get in touch with them. But get their numbers, man. Make phone calls to them. The last thing they want to do is talk to you, but they got to talk to you. So call them. All right, guys. 8 o'clock. I am going to cut out of here because I do want to get this change.org thing done. I think that's from us outside of the state of Missouri. That's our way to show people within the state of Missouri that we do support them. And I think this is cool. I think it's a good effort on our part to show them we're behind you guys and we're behind you 100%. Let's see. I'm just seeing if you guys have anything. Okay, let me do this. Let me see, because I know we're on YouTube here. I may have to put out a small video later on, and what I can do is I can take the link in the for the change.org and put it in the description and the comments of the video so that we can have it. Because YouTube is kind of weird how they you can't send group emails out to everybody or whatever. So yeah, let me do that. Let me go work on that and try to get this thing out tonight. And if you guys have any suggestions on it, just email me at paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. Man, as always, thank you guys for hanging out. Go grab you a cold beer. Please no driving tonight. If you have to go somewhere, please get somebody to bring you. Hope you guys can get out. The weather has become really nice across the country right now. So hopefully you guys can get out over the weekend and get some range time in. As I always say, take a kid out there, take a young person, teach them the respect, the safe handling of firearms. Do some things out there with young people. If you know an older person who used to be involved in guns, whether they're at a nursing home or sitting at home by themselves, you know what? Call them up. Even if they don't want to come shoot, they may want to smell that smell of gunpowder. They may want to hear that sound of a Full Metal Jacket bouncing off a plate of steel or something like that. So yeah, definitely call an old person. Say, hey man, you want to come to the range with me? If nothing else, just to ride along. So yeah, go out there, guys. Have a good time this weekend. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy your families. Wish you all luck. This is a fun show tonight. I'm excited, and I'm always flattered and humbled that so many of you guys hang out with us on a Friday night. I know you got better things to do on a Friday night, and the fact that you spend it with me really does mean something to me, and it's very humbling to me. Guys, enjoy yourselves. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Shoot straight, and we will see you back next Friday.